Thinking about the word thresholds and the two definitions I came across for this word, the first of which described like the physical threshold, like a strip of wood or metal or something that forms the bottom of a doorway when you go from one room to the next or from the outside to the inside. So that describes a physical or material reality. Also being drawn to this sort of more abstract definition that is often used in maybe a scientific context or psychological or philosophical way of the minimum energy required to provoke a new sensation or a new condition. So that can be related to a threshold of pain or a threshold between the unconscious and conscious thought or something like that. So I was interested in this space of the in-between from one state to the next, or something that describes a border or a margin or a place of change where you're not really in one place or another, but in this kind of suspended place. And it's maybe suspenseful too, but it is a dynamic place. I was drawn to this word when noticing how these doorways and passages were popping up a lot in this work I was making here. Homes are kind of ambiguous places because I can't help but kind of go back to where I grew up. Like your childhood home kind of retains this iconic status in your memory sometimes. And when I'm flipping through the magazines or the books and deciding what shapes or features I want to cut out, often there's something in those images that reminds me of spaces I used to live in. And it might not be a very obvious shape or form or object in particular, but there's something I think subconsciously, maybe even just about the lighting in it or the texture or the warmth or the colors that compels me and helps me decide what forms I want to cut out. And then that sort of gets changed again when I am putting the collages together. It kind of feels like I'm working on a puzzle and seeing which shapes and atmospheres of these different slices of rooms will work. In some ways, I think that is related to how memory is experienced, or the way memories can get mixed up and changed over time, and things get put out of order, or things get emphasized or de-emphasized through the distance of time from the original experience. Talking about the uncanny, I think, is also ambiguous because there's sort of an imperceptible, at times, shift between when a place feels cozy and familiar and then sort of slips into something more disquieting or uncomfortable. And I think that is where my interest lies, or what I'd like to point to in my work, that imperceptible shift where it feels like it could be either safe or kind of scary, or that it can be both of those things simultaneously and under different circumstances. There's a atmosphere and a tone that I think is shared by James Castle and myself, especially with the work that I've created here. I also was really noticing this sort of ambiguity that he also seems to evoke in many of his interior spaces, with portals and passageways that are obscured or blocked off by other pieces of furniture or layering spaces so that a passageway or a door might lead to an ambiguous space or to the outside, but you're not really sure. I also was noticing a lot that there is a sense of the living in his drawings, like the signs of where inhabitants are there, but they're not depicted, but they are suggested, which I think is also an interest that I share in my work as well. It kind of makes me feel that the drawings point to something besides just a depiction of, not just a depiction of what he sees, but it also feels more of a depiction of a psychological state or a memory, something that it's not depicting just a moment, it is sort of more of the life of that space and the life of him experiencing that space. A big part of the residencies that I've participated in have been about traveling to those places and kind of anticipating the work that I wanted to make, but also an excitement about not knowing what was going to happen in the space of those weeks and being interested in that. So the change in location was very vital in sort of spurring those breaking of habits or the will to kind of experiment and say yes to whatever happened in the studio and just kind of explore in that way. I was thinking about how rare it is for me to have so much uninterrupted time to focus on my work. So I feel like this residency, I've been very lucky in that respect. And it's been some of the most productive time I've had. Usually if I had a challenging day previously with painting, I'll switch to working with prints for a while and vice versa. So I find going back and forth between those media really helps me to stay engaged and hopefully learn something from painting that I can bring into a print or something from the printing process that I can pull into a painting. I also feel really lucky to be here in Boise during such a beautiful season. Seeing the color palette of the landscape, and I think that all must be having an influence on the color palette that's coming out in the new work I'm making here as well. So that has been really lovely and a nice surprise. It feels like my return to Baltimore is still far away, but I know it's not. On one hand, I'm looking forward to seeing my friends and coworkers again, but it's gonna be very sad to leave the James Castle house. Yeah, I don't know. I'm mostly just excited about the work that I'm gonna finish here and then what that will entail for future work, because I feel like it's gonna be something that resonates for a long time. And I'm excited about that.